Hello, my name is Katie Groves, and this is part 26 in my series about deprogramming from trauma-based mind control. If you've not done so already, I ask that you please watch the first two parts of this series, linked in the description below, for disclaimers and safety measures you can take while watching these videos. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how I have learned to deprogram myself around the belief that I'm evil, and develop a more positive sense of self and self-image. My last video, I talked about some of the ways in which I was programmed to believe that I'm evil, and if that video is too much for you, I apologize. This video is going to be much more solution-focused. So what are the ways I've learned to deprogram myself? Well, first, I've had to set an intention. Intention is to find the parts of myself who were made to believe they were evil and to heal them at all costs. And that, generally speaking, is an intention I set for all of my deprogramming sessions with myself. It's finding the parts I wish to find and healing them at all costs. I must also become aware, or hold the awareness, that these children inside are some of the most broken, battered parts of me. These are parts that truly believe that they are children of Satan, that they are bad to the core, pathologically evil, diagnosable psychopaths. Lots of extremely negative, painful things. I'm very wounded, and I must understand that these parts were created through trauma, and that in order to heal them, I must heal the trauma as well. So I look inward for these parts, and I follow the protocols I previously described about asking parts for information, going to parts who hold the core programming for individual parts and asking them for permission to gain access to what they know so that I may help them work with me to deprogram the child parts, etc. Once I do all that, and I am sitting face-to-face inside with a child who believes they are evil, I've learned many tools for working with that child. One of the basic tools is empathy. That child inside sees my energy, can feel how I feel, is reading me to discern whether or not I'm a threat or whether I'm safe. So making sure that I am a safe adult part in a safe adult part of me, that my intentions are good, that I'm not trying to coerce this child into deprogramming, but that I'm sitting with this child in respect, allowing the child to present themselves however they need to, however violently, however painfully, however defensively, and I'm going to be patient with the child and allow them to express themselves however they need to, and take as long as they need before they decide to open up to me and allow me to deprogram them. Typically, these children are desperate for any affirmation that they are good, and if they believe that good is bad, which many of them do because many of them were subjected to Satanic rehearsal programming, which made them believe that good is bad and bad is good, and that this evil behavior they were forced to commit was quote-unquote good, right? They're looking for any affirmation that they're either good or bad depending on what they define good to be. So these children want approval. And while I cannot validate their false beliefs about what quote-unquote good is, I can hold space for them and approve of them on a deeper level. I've learned to sit with these inner children and emanate the energy of love so that they see that they do not have to hold up their programming for me in order to please me. These children typically believe that I am a handler or a programmer of some kind, and so they think I expect them to behave in certain ways that I do not expect them to behave in. So I will watch for those behaviors, and I will hold space for them and not react to them until they realize that I'm not a programmer or a handler, that I'm a good part of the system, that I'm a good person, and that I wish them no harm. And once they realize this, they'll typically break down and cry, and they will release their trauma. And then I will gain access to the horrific things that they were forced to endure that created their programming. Typically, these children that I come in contact with are themselves polyfragmented systems. They are super systems within a super system. And as my system is huge, right, I can really pretty much assume that when I come in contact with a part, that part has parts, unless they're so tiny a fragment that they're barely a blip in my thought stream. So if I'm sitting in front of a child part who has a body, who has a personality, chances are likely that child is multiple themselves. So understanding that, I understand that I'm going to typically receive their traumatic memories in fragments that may not all make sense to me in a linear way. But if I'm willing to assemble the pieces of the puzzle that I receive, so to speak, as I receive them, I can start to understand where this child comes from and map how their programming was likely installed. And I usually get help from the child's inner programmers around this too. Like I said, I only typically get to sit face-to-face with an inner child like this once I've already made contact with their inner programmers and gained knowledge of their programming. So typically I know what to expect. But sometimes the inner child's inner programmers are very damaged, at which point I kind of have to do this stuff on my own. So once I start receiving pieces of the child's trauma, I start seeing what the child sees, and this is before I start processing it. Once I receive enough pieces that I leave in their dissociatively fragmented states, right? I don't integrate them together because that would terribly overwhelm the child. I instead choose to process each individual piece of trauma by itself. And I typically have parts that I call receptacles, who I pour that trauma into, who are willing, strong, older parts of the system who have agreed to receive and process the trauma for the inner child part who is too young to process it. And that is why they split off and it was left unprocessed when we were small. Once this quote-unquote inner receptacle, and I don't like how dehumanizing that term is, but that is the term we've chosen. Once this inner part heals the trauma, processes it, then they're able to go to that inner child part and integrate with that part, and that part becomes their quote-unquote heart and soul. And once this inner child part has given up their trauma, they begin to feel a sense of lightness. They feel less heavy. And while the receptacle heals the programmed part's trauma, that part loses a lot of sense of their programming because it was rooted in the trauma. And that part starts to talk to me, work with me, and heal around the traumatizing nature of having been programmed. And then, once that inner child is integrated with the quote-unquote receptacle, then the receptacle integrates with me. And I gain conscious knowledge of not just what the child experienced dissociatively in the trauma, but of what it truly felt like to be that child part. And then I am integrated with that programmed part. That part's programming has dissolved, and I no longer have to suffer in isolation from myself. At least on that level. Oh, that was a lot. A different part of me decided to come forward in making this video and share all of that. So, upon reviewing this video, I will determine that it is safe to publish, that I feel comfortable with what I've shared. So if you see this, then know that the primary part of my personality that makes sure that what we put out into the internet is safe for survivors to the best of our knowledge, that part will be reviewing all this. And I will make sure that, to my knowledge, no one is harmed by the information I've shared. Okay. I hope this all made sense. And I'm going to do some grounding exercises because I'm a little out of my body. It still happens to me all the time. I'm very much not fully healed, but I have made a lot of progress. And so, triggered. Okay. Thank you.